Welcome to the Costa Property Podcast, the podcast that turns your dreams of owning a piece of paradise on the Costa del Sol into reality. I'm WL Laurie, and I'm joined by my co-host and wife, Sandra Laurie.
If you're dreaming of your perfect Costa del Sol home, wondering where to start, and want to get real, no-frills expert advice, then you're absolutely in the right place.
Another sunny day in the Costa del Sol. So excited for our latest guests, Tony and Anna, from New York to Mijas Pueblo. They had a dream of buying a home in Spain, so I'm really excited to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I can't wait to catch up with them. It's been difficult setting this one up due to the time difference in New York, but it's going to be really, really good to chat. They're going to walk us through their journey of purchasing their dream villa in Mijas Pueblo from WL Costa Properties and taking on an extensive renovation project to turn it into the luxurious villa that it is today. So yeah, we're going to really pick their brains on the process of obtaining a tourist license and turning their luxury villa into a business, because we get lots of questions from our listeners connected to how do we do that? How do we take a property and we actually turn that into a business so we generate some revenue and income from that? So we will be delving into that today, which is going to be great. But before we do so, Warner, can you share with us the word of the day?
Absolutely, Sandra. So the word of today is casa.
Casa. So that's quite an appropriate word for today. What does casa mean?
It means house in Spanish.
So casa is the word for house. Amazing. Thank you, Warner, for another insightful word of the day. Let's continue with the episode. Today on the Costa Property Podcast, we're joined by the amazing Anna and Tony, all the way from New York. Hi, guys.
Excited to be here.
Hi, guys.
We're so excited to have you here. And thank you so much for your time and making yourself available to chat to our listeners today about your amazing journey from New York to Mijas Pueblo. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
So I'm Tony. I'm originally from Ireland. I was born in Dublin and raised in Galway. I come from a large family. I originally immigrated to London for a few years and then moved to New York in 91. So I've been here for more than 30 years. I work in real estate myself. I'm an executive with a international real estate firm on the valuation side of things.
Amazing.
I met Anna about 3 years ago during the pandemic. So yes, it is possible to find love in the time of pandemic COVID. We now live in Hudson Yards in Manhattan.
Yes, so I'm from Brazil. Like Tony, I come from an actually big family. I have 68 cousins, which I think is fascinating. I love sharing that information. I also have been in New York. I think we are very much like classic New Yorkers that comes like, I came to spend 6 months and it's been almost 30 years. We both music, like going to live music and also playing guitar. I work with executive and leadership coaching. And yes, we just love traveling. Therefore, I think Spain is such a perfect thing to do. That was definitely something that we were looking forward, and it happened.
You made it happen. You manifested it. You made it happen. And you have an amazing property that we're going to talk a little bit more about later. But I know Warner has some questions for you. So Warner, I'll be quiet for a second and let you dive in.
From the first phone call, Tony, we eventually found the dream property in Mijas Pueblo.
Absolutely. We were so lucky. I mean, as your listeners should know, my sister Deborah and you are friends, and Deborah introduced me to WL Costa Properties. And that was obviously a game changer for us because we'd spent several months looking online at properties, both in Portugal and Spain, just to see what was out there. But then after calling you, obviously, you had set us up with some listings that were of interest. And
Yes. By the way, for context, I was pushing for Portugal. I've always liked culture, like and the architecture and the beaches. So it was an interesting thing because we both aimed to actually eventually have something in Europe. We had that in common when we first met. But I was like, I've been to Spain. I had been to Spain many times. In the south, I had been to only Seville, which I love. I was okay. So let's look into this.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So you were pushing for Portugal and you were pushing for Spain, Tony. Was that the dynamic?
Yes. I mean, my parents had retired there. We had an apartment in Spain for, probably 30 years. So I'd been there several times. I remember walking through those little cobblestone streets and thinking, this is where I want to retire. So it always, was in my mind, that area, find something there. And when I met Anna, luckily, we both had that same kind of idea that we wanted to find a place in Europe that would be a home away from home and eventually, semi-retire there. So yeah, I steered her in that direction.
So did it take much convincing, Anna? So at what point did you kind of let go of the Portugal plan and cast your sights on Spain?
That is actually a good question because the joke is this, right? We decided, okay, let's go to Spain for a week. And we were already talking to Warner then. And I have to say, and people were actually making fun of us, like, wait, you really think you're going to find a place in a week? Like people usually, even when you're local, much longer, it's not so cheap. We're like, okay, all right, I get it. And I, pretty much at the end of our week, because we met him probably 1 day or 2 days before, I was about to give up. I didn't like it. I feel like, wait, I'm not feeling like I'm in Spain. It felt a little like the coast didn't attract me as much, the buildings and such, until we actually went to the Pueblo. And I said, oh, okay, now I'm feeling like I'm in Spain, right? I'm feeling like I'm having like that. Okay, I'm not just in a average place, even though I know it's beautiful, but I know people love Costa del Sol, but I was more interested in that quaint feeling, right? Pueblo made it for me.
And tell us about the property itself. What attracted you to that? What was...
Well, we actually had the listing that when we were in the States, we found the listing online. So it was like anything else. I think I sent you a bunch of things, Warner, and said, how about this property? And that listing was on the bottom of the list. It was like, okay, it's near Mijas. Let's just have a look at it. So I think for us, we looked at several properties at that stage. It was, as Anna said, we were probably at day 5. And we had it in our Google Maps, and the drive down to it was just spectacular because we kept seeing the ocean and the valley, and it was mountainous. And I remember saying to Anna, I really don't care what's at the end of this drive because just the drive is spectacular. So whatever's there, let's just buy it, As far as the house, and, our initial reaction was, it was older, definitely was going to need a lot of work. The interior style of it wasn't really what we were looking for, but
I have to say, like, I remember, like, that was the same feeling. I couldn't believe it. It's so magical, like the drive up. And then I think we went to the Pueblo, kind of went around saying, oh, this is it. Look at this. Everything felt so fitting and perfect. And then I remember then going down to the road, and then the ocean is all the way in the back. It felt like almost staged. Like, okay, this tend to be like our place. And then the street itself, it's this tiny little street. Again, I don't care about the house. And I still have a video of me inside the house, like being so like, I see potential. Like, okay, yes. Like I was really like, this is it. Like I wasn't crazy about the house. And that's why we renovated and we changed the place a lot, like location and energy and beauty, all around.
It's a stunning location, and, its proximity to Mijas Pueblo, which is an absolute gem, in terms of stunning scenic views. It's just absolutely beautiful. I think your property is phenomenal. And yeah, you went on quite an extensive renovation journey, right? To make it to the standard of the property that you see today. So did you have a very clear vision of how you wanted your property to look and feel?
No.
This is actually the joke.
Yeah, I think for us, the house had a lot of smaller rooms, and it was old. It was like 1992. I think the biggest decision that we made that was going to affect how it moved forward is we decided we were going to design it ourselves. We weren't on a budget, but we thought we had an idea, and we figured between the two of us and our style and what we like, we would just do the design and architectural planning ourselves. And so that was a struggle, because then we had to try and communicate that vision.
Now having the technical language, we're just like, yes, we have a vision. And then they were like often challenging us, saying, wait, are you sure? I was saying, yeah. And I would it was actually a fascinating process. To me, was probably one of the most rewarding experience in a way, because we had a vision. And I think the vision itself also was building itself. We had somehow a vision. We knew we didn't want to do what a lot of houses around have, like to very modern. We didn't want that. It makes no sense to make this old house look very new. It wouldn't fit. So we wanted, how can we do like Mediterranean, but also, I don't know, like it was an interesting thing. So at the end, we did have a clear vision, and it was building itself. That was the best, because communicating them with the people that were supporting us, which was life changing as well. And we speak often about that, about having you guys. And then, like, I can't imagine this without all the support, without everything that came with buying the house.
I would imagine there is nothing more rewarding than seeing your project and your dream and your vision turn into the property that you have in front of you today, right?
Absolutely. I think even a lot of people say to us today, they can't believe that from the time that we closed on the house, which was in November, and then we moved into it in May.
Tell us, like, so the listeners, tell us a little bit about, your vision for the property. What's the long-term plan?
This is actually a good question. I think primarily it's a place, it's like a dream place for us, because we live in New York, right? Think of it, fast-paced, concrete jungle, beautiful. We love it. But it's like the contrast. It's what we don't get here. So for us, it's like this place where we have nature and community. And I even was thinking of renovating the garage into like a workshop place for like ceramics and woodwork and a garden. Like, this is like for New Yorkers, it's like the epiphany of.
We're also looking at trying to create a retreat where it's very secluded, the area. It's not within the hustle and bustle. We're a little bit removed up in the hills, very secluded, because the nearest house, we're still in the woods, so we want to create that vibe of this is where you can come to relax, do your yoga, play some music, cook, and, have our friends around with us to share in it.
Amazing. Amazing. And your property, we'll share more details about your property later. You can find it on Instagram and see some wonderful pictures about the property and exactly what you've described in terms of the end result of the renovation. Your property is also available for holidaymakers in terms of if they wish to experience that idyllic, retreat that you've just described, Tony. And what type of customer do you typically see?
This is actually interesting because we didn't know, right? This is new to us. And I think it makes sense that what we're attracting are people that are kind of wanting to be like secluded, but having this. Because as you said, we have 5 minutes from the Pueblo. We have 15 minutes from the coast. We are literally 25 minutes from the airport. So we are attracting like, definitely not people like they're up to partying in the Costa del Sol, right? These are more older family. Like, we have one that it's going to be like people that are like maybe more intellectual, not necessarily just up to having fun.
So not your typical, party holiday. It's somebody that's really on the search for a bit more culture. Is that what I'm hearing? A bit more of that typical Spanish experience. And I guess being able to switch off a little bit from the world around them, right? Because the location, as you just said, Tony and Annie, you're so private in terms of neighbors and everything there. So the house gives that ability to really disconnect, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even the layout of the house and the way it's designed inside, it's got very natural vibe of stone and wood and that, and the kitchen is very inviting. We want people to, unwind, read books, play music, cook, and just enjoy the scenery. And then, of course, enjoy Mijas Pueblo and that vibe there, tapas and wine and just,
What's always great to mention about where you're located, and I think about the Costa del Sol in general, is just proximity to Malaga International Airport. So listen, you went on, as we mentioned, like a real significant journey in terms of a huge renovation project, really short timeline to be able to get the end result that you have today. Tell us a little bit about the process and, what were the challenges? What were the type of challenges that you encountered as you set on that journey?
We're probably not the best example of what the normal challenges was. We were lucky from the very start. Getting introduced to Warner was just for us the game changer, because then he introduced us to the lawyer, helped us close the deal. She also helped us get our NIE numbers. Then she did the closing. We weren't even in Spain when we closed on the house. And then Warner then introduced us to our accountant, who then got us our tourist license. So the process for us, and then of course he introduces to our contractors.
Yeah, but I'm going to speak to different kinds of challenges. I think the number one, it's how we were so passionate about the project and we couldn't be there. Like, it's like one of those frustrating, like, I can't believe I'm not there to oversee the details and make choices, which aligns with the second, to me, probably the biggest challenge of all. It's how Spain, it's very different how paced. And it's like the online experience to me, I could not believe that I couldn't just go to a store and buy something and it would be okay. It wasn't as smooth as we're in New York, right? Everything's like 1, 2, 3, done there. Like literally from like ordering four chairs and getting two, and then not knowing when. It was just very challenging to me to see the speed of things, which is okay. And then at the end, we just adjust and you get flexible. But in the beginning, like, I was very frustrated with the online experience of supplies. I would
Right.
say that would be one, and then being away from there to decide and choose.
The challenge that you mentioned, around the pace in Spain and the fact that it is different, how do you recommend people to prepare for that so that they don't start to become frustrated?
I mean, look, there's no doubt that America is a service economy. What we want and what most people, I guess, do want when they want to relocate or at least buy a second home in Spain is you want that change pace.
Mhm.
So the cost of that is that level of service also slows down. Just because, oh, I like that table, I want it in the house, and then you buy it, it's not going to turn up within a week. You could be waiting 2 or 3 months. So there's certainly, you have to lower your expectations. It's not like the quality of the service is good. It's just the efficiency of
Yes.
is low. So you have to prepare for that for sure.
Yeah. And Sandra, I'm really, knowing what I know today, I would even invent somebody's job to be my agent, my consultant, a supply. I'm not joking. I would say, hey, if you're not working, let me hire you to do one thing for me, which would be to do the research, to ask for it. And I feel like I wish I had somebody understanding. Let me do the research. Let me go and speak to different vendors, because I couldn't do it from here, right?
I think when we spent a month while the house was under construction, probably drove to a hardware or a furniture store at least 2 or 3 times a day,
Every day.
just to find out who is the best supplies, most cost effective. That was an experience.
Lots of learnings there, though. But that's so true what you say. It's like night and day compared to what you're used to. So you've obviously had to put in a lot of research and due diligence in there in terms of finding the supplies and, being able to know where to go. I imagine you have a lot of great tips for our listeners. So we'll have to put together a Tony and Anna's top supply list for people on the back of all of your research and what you've discovered there. And you talked about your experience, not being the same as others when it comes to, typical challenges that people might expect to see with lawyers or obtaining tourist license. That seemed to have gone, pretty smooth for you guys based on what you say. But, from the outside looking in, if you were to observe maybe the experiences of others around you, or where do you think it could really go wrong for people? What are the type of pitfalls that people need to be aware of when they're going on the same type of journey that you've went on?
I think it's a lack of enough education prior to the experience. Especially if you're a first-time buyer, you have an idea. Like, okay, it's going to be okay. But like the details of Spain, right? Like what really comes to buying a house in Spain, from what you pay, from like all the different fees that you have to attach to it, from all the processes of a tourist license. If you don't really spend enough time educating yourself prior to it, you will be probably not very happy. So I think education, and with that, talking to people, like such a podcast, like I wish I had that.
People need to be aware of, unlike say, when you buy a rental home in the US and you want to then, make some money, it's partial investment, partial retirement home. As a non-resident, there are no benefits when it comes to tax deduction. So you rent it, you cannot discount the cost of maintenance, your utilities, some taxes before you're taxed on the net. You're taxed on your gross revenue in Spain. If you're a resident, of course, then you can discount all of like repairs and maintenance, the fees you pay for your property manager and all your utilities. You can discount them all out. That's one thing that people should be aware of. At the beginning, we really thought, oh, we've built this amazing house. Everybody's going to want to rent it. And really happen. I mean, by the time it was finished, it was in the middle of the summer, and we had then basically missed the entire summer season. People are booking our house. It's almost fully booked for the majority of the 3 months of the summer, which is fantastic. But you need to time it. If you want to rent your house out for the summertime, it needs to be on the market at the beginning of the year.
I think that's really valuable advice in terms of you need to be season ready. So you really need to sit and do your due diligence, right? And do your homework and make sure that your timeline is realistic, particularly if you want to be hitting that tourism market. And exactly what you said there, Tony, around, the cost and the taxation part. There is costs associated with that. It is essentially, it's a business. So I think people, if they do have that type of dream, it's very important to sit down and do their homework correctly on that piece as well, right? But looking back at your journey and, everything that you've learned as you've really embarked on your own process, is there one piece of learning that really stands out? Is there one thing that, you really look back on and go, oh God, I wish I knew that before I started my search?
I will say, you have to remember that you're buying a house in a different country. No matter, even if you're from Ireland or England or whatever, and it's only 2.5 hours away. It's not like that you can hop in your car and go down on this problem. You need to have somebody that you trust that is there looking out for your best interest. So there's two things there. The maintenance on a property, and we have the villa, it's got a pool and it's got land. We need somebody that as soon as there's an issue, we call and go, can you pop down and fix this? So having that person 24/7, but almost that you trust them, they've got your best interests at heart, so that they're then managing the inflow and outflow of guests, which is the job in itself. The level of service that we want to give our guests when they come to stay with us, we basically decided that we wanted to basically have our own manager. I would certainly recommend that anybody looking to invest, particularly when it comes to a house like a villa, not an apartment, is you need to have somebody on the books, just, as your maintenance.
I actually cannot imagine because, it's one of those things. We could not have done this without now, especially having Deborah, because there's so much that actually happens, right? So finding that person, or that in our case, it's a couple, it happens to be so fitting, like that you can truly rely because you're not there to really be your support system in the ground when you're not around. And I might extend that to your support to us, that connect to a whole network. I keep thinking of, it keeps coming back to me, this support system. And you cannot, like, for anybody trying to begin and venture into a new country in Spain, you find your support system from the beginning. Like, we didn't have Deborah until later. And like, now I cannot think of our villa without.
I think that's super advice, that essentially, like, if somebody is really thinking about going through a similar process that you've gone through, it's almost like come over and spend a little bit of time establishing that support network, right?
Absolutely.
Love that, yeah.
And don't underestimate that, because you are, especially if you're in a similar situation to you guys, as you correctly say, you're not here, you're not on the ground. So you really need that around you. But I'm so thrilled that it's worked out as it has. And I love to hear that, as we approach into the season for 2024, your villa's already nearly booked out across the summer season. Like, that's incredible. And I'm not surprised, because it's stunning, but that must feel great.
Yeah, we have openings in July.
On that note, Anna, you have a wonderful property. How can our listeners find out more about your property if they do feel like jumping on a plane to Malaga and being 20 minutes from the airport in July?
Yes. We are in different platforms that it's now integrated into Holiday. But I think for anybody, the best approach is just to connect with us on Instagram.
Casa Roja Spain.
Spain.
So that's CASA ROCA Spain.
You can just send us a message. You can have more flexibility with pricing and also the schedule.
Super. It's Casa Rojas Spain, and details will be in the show notes. So if you do feel intrigued to go on and have a look, just pop into the show notes and the information will be written there. And I have a final question for you today, if that's okay. And I'm really intrigued to hear, what do you both love most about Spain?
There's a couple of things. I mean, I've lived in the States for 30 years. All of my family live in Ireland, or I'm lucky my sister lives in Spain. It's that closeness and proximity. But I love my wine, and I love cook, Anna particularly, and I love tapas food. So, and also it's inexpensive. The amount of money I save just on wine alone when I stay in Spain is pretty significant. And I love the culture, but food and wine, certainly, and being closer to my family so they can come visit.
I can say that I love everything about Spain. The diversity is just amazing. It's not such a big country with so much diversity. But to me, specifically about Mijas in our house, it's the contrast. Everything that I don't get in New York is that ability to slow down and really enjoy life. I go to the Pueblo and sometimes I sit and I look at people just spending time without being on their phones. It's this ability to be present and still have like very fundamental human experiences away from digital, fast-paced. Oh, we're achieving something. Like, this is New York, right? I don't want that. Like, if I'm in Spain, I want to be like talking to the vendor. I want to know who makes the bread. It's this slower pace, a quality of food and quality of experiences.
I love them. I completely agree with you on that. And I feel that it's a real privilege to be able to witness that in Spain and have that still available at our fingertips when we live in a world that's just so fast and we sometimes don't have the ability to slow down. So I love that you've described that. So all that's really left for today, Anna and Tony, is just a huge thank you on behalf of Warner and myself and the Costa Property Podcast. We really appreciate you giving up your time to talk to us and our listeners today. And it's been a real privilege to listen to your journey and observe the incredible journey that you both have been on as you purchased your dream home in Spain. So thank you so much.
Welcome, Sandra and Warner. We really appreciate you having us on. And of course, it wouldn't have happened without Warner. And it's a delight. And congratulations on the podcast. We wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Good luck, and we'll see you back in Spain pretty soon.
Thank you so much for listening into today's episode on the Costa Property Podcast. Another fantastic episode learning about the highs and lows of relocating to the Costa del Sol from real people who have been through the journey themselves and, of course, our wonderful experts. If you have been enjoying the show so far, remember to hit subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating or review.
We absolutely love hearing your thoughts. Please send any questions that you would like us to answer on the show to warner@wlcostaproperties.net. Or you can pop us a message on our socials, which are in the show notes. Remember, you can also visit the website, www.wlcostaproperties.net.
See you on the next episode, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.